Hey everyone. Welcome back to Strange Mind 6. I'm your host, Ruby, and today we're going to be reading more of Chicken Soup for the Dog Lover's Soul. Stories of canine companionship, comedy, and courage. Written by multiple authors. Some include Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Marty Becker, DVM, Carol Klein, Amy D. Shoja, and many more. But before we begin, I would like to ask if you guys can please hit that like button. It would mean the world to me if you did. If you can hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, I would love it if you would join us and be a part of this family. We do more than reading. We read, we play video games. I sometimes post different things, scary things, fun facts, different things like that. If you're interested, then by all means, definitely hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you a part of this family. And without further ado, my dear friends, grab a snack, grab a drink, or sit back and relax, and let's get to it. Greta and Pearl, two seniors. When the phone rang and the gentleman on the other end said he wanted to place his dog, an 11-year-old German Shepherd named Greta, I winced. He had sold his house, was moving to a temporary apartment, and would soon be leaving the country. As the director of Southwest German Shepherd Rescue, I agreed to see and evaluate the dog, and a note of realistic caution to the owner. He'd better start thinking about a contingency plan. Greta sure was a nice old gal. We put her information on our website right away and did receive a couple of inquiries, but no one wanted to deal with the little annoyances that sometimes come with an aging dog. Rescue organizations functions within a large cooperative network. One day I received an email from a woman named Susan who ran another rescue group. She said that she had an elderly woman, Pearl, who was looking for an older, large German Shepherd. I suggested that Susan visit our website, where she could view the two senior citizen canines currently in our rescue program. About a week later, Susan emails me Pearl's phone number and advised that although the woman was 86 years old, she felt that it would be worthwhile to pursue the adoption. I immediately phoned Pearl and told her all about Greta. I explained that she was on medication, and Pearl laughed and said they would take their pills together. I made it clear that the average lifespan of a German Shepherd is between 10 and 12 years, but many reach 13 to 15 years of age. I also asked about her mobility and ability to take care of such a dog. Pearl was undaunted and informed me that in her younger days she'd run a Great Dane rescue program. She told me that she would make arrangements for Greta to live with her granddaughter on her 40-acre ranch, should anything happen to her, Pearl. Further, Pearl said that she was still driving her car and if need be, was able to make trips to the vet. I explained our policies and advised that I would be paying her a home visit. We don't usually place German Shepherds in apartments for a number of reasons. However, in this case, it seemed appropriate. Greta didn't need a lot of exercise. What she needed was a lot of TLC. a sense of security, and a devoted companion who was around all the time, and Pearl's needs were exactly the same. After meeting Pearl and her husband Bert and checking out what would be Greta's new home, I agreed to introduce them. We arranged to meet at a nearby park. The meeting went so well that Greta went home with them on the spot. Every time I made a follow-up call, I held my breath, and each time Pearl told me everything was going great. I asked that she periodically contact me with updates. Whenever I heard Pearl's voice on the other end of the phone, I found myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. During one call, Pearl told me that Greta had a bath and had gone to visit the vet for a checkup. She had tested her for every disease known to man or beast, and apart from a sluggish thyroid, Greta was in fine shape. In subsequent conversations, Pearl related that Greta shadowed her everywhere. She spoke about how Greta would place her body across Pearl's if she sensed any unsteadiness. The next call was to tell me if I were to have molded a dog from clay and given it life, it would have been Greta. I cannot imagine life without her. I assured Pearl that I was certain Greta felt the same. We were into week 5 of Pearl and Greta's union when I received a phone call from a distraught Pearl. The management of her apartment complex had informed her that despite the fact that she was permitted to have pets weighing up to 100 pounds, which we had verified, certain specific breeds were excluded. Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Dobermans, Chows, and Pit Bulls. There was no mention of this restriction in her lease, nor had Pearl ever been made aware of the policy. Nonetheless, Greta would have to go. I assured Pearl that we would have to fight all the way to court if necessary. She informed me that she would rather live in her car than part with her new companion. Yet I could sense the panic associated with the possibility of being uprooted at nearly 87 years of age, with an allying husband to boot. I advised Pearl that I would need a few days to do some research. I had to read the Landlord-Tenant Act and familiarize myself with the aspect of the law. In the meantime, I suggested that Pearl obtain a letter from her doctor stating that she needed Greta for her psychological and physical well-being, that Greta assisted both her and her husband with balance issues and provided them with a sense of security. Pearl's husband, Bert, was going blind as a result of his diabetes and spent a good deal of time sleeping, leaving Pearl lonely and depressed. That is, until Greta came along. Both she and Greta had become reignited. This was truly a mutually beneficial relationship. I put in a call to the co-founder of REACH, Restoring and Extending Ability with Canine Helpers. I asked if she thought getting an 11-year-old German Shepherd certified as a service dog was feasible. In essence, she said that as long as the dog could fulfill Pearl's needs, as outlined by her doctor, and provided Greta could pass the Level 1 assistance dog test, yes, assuming you feel that Greta's temperament is sound enough. I asked her to start the process and told her I'd get back to her. I checked with Pearl to verify she had her doctor's letter, and to let her know that a small army would be marching into her home in a few days. She had no other information and no preparation. 1 week after that distraught call from Pearl, the certified reach evaluator, with a clipboard and a score sheet in hand, an additional temperament tester, two strangers to the dog and family, two children, and one female German Shepherd, unknown to both Greta and Pearl, arrived at their home. It was a cool day, but I was sweating. I had no idea how the obedience aspect of the evaluation would go. I did not know how much control Pearl would need or have over Greta, as Greta faced strange dogs inside her home territory, unfamiliar kids bumping into her, food temptations while being called, and so on. I was confident that Greta would be fine with everything else. 45 minutes later, the score sheet was given to the reach evaluator. Greta had passed with flying colors. At the tender age of 11, Greta became a certified level 1 assistance dog, and Pearl became the proudest lady in Arizona, as they were presented with their official certificate and Greta's badge. Pearl held out her arms to the entire room, proclaiming, "I love you." As the team was pulling out of the parking lot, we saw Pearl with the certified letter and certificate in hand, and Greta with her badge hanging from her collar, heading in the direction of the manager's office. I phoned her that evening and asked her how it went. Upon seeing her credentials, the manager said, "Well, I guess she can go just about anywhere now." To which Pearl had crowed triumphantly, "You got that right, Stephanie Smith." Bullet's dog. Dogs have company. Dogs love company. They place it first on their short list of needs. Written by J.R. Ackerley. One morning in early June, I went outside to feed our horse, Bullet. Usually Bullet waits patiently at the fence for his breakfast, but this morning he was lingering near the two tall oak trees in the center of the pasture, where he liked to spend the hottest hours of the day. Curious why he wasn't eager for his breakfast, I peered across the pasture at him, hoping he wasn't sick. Then, as he slowly began to walk towards me, I noticed a blotch of red fur hunkering down in the tall grass beneath one of the trees. So this was what held Bullet's attention. This morning, another stray dog was found. It had found its way onto our property. Most of them shied away from our large retired racehorse. But this dog seemed to feel safe in the shelter of the tall grass in spite of Bullet. I placed a bucket of alfalfa cubes inside the fence. After Bullet ate them, I would give him a few of the oatmeal cookies he loved more than anything. It was a glorious morning, so I sat down on my back steps, reluctant to go back inside and start my day. As Bullet ate his alfalfa cubes, the dog rose cautiously to its feet. The dog stared at Bullet for a long time, and then slowly made its way toward the horse. It paused every few steps and looked at me intently. To make sure I wasn't a threat, As the dog drew closer to Bullet, I held my breath. I didn't know how Bullet would react to an animal that approached him while he was eating. Knowing that a kick from a horse can be fatal to a dog, I was about to shout at the dog to scare it away. Just then, Bullet swung his head and looked at the dog for a moment. Unperturbed by the approaching animal, he turned back to his food and began to eat again. The dog drew close enough to snag a cube that Bullet had dropped. My heart broke as I watched the dog, a female, chewing on the alfalfa. I knew she had to be extremely hungry to attempt to eat horse feed. I went inside the house to find something that the dog could eat. I had some leftover meatloaf in the refrigerator, then that I had planned on serving for dinner. I put the meatloaf in an aluminum pie tin and walked toward the fence with it. The dog ran to safety in the tall grass near the oak trees as soon as I took one step in her direction. I put the food down on the ground and tried to coax her toward me. After several minutes, I gave up and went back inside the house. She would probably come for the food as soon as I was out of sight. A little while later, while folding laundry, I realized that I had not yet given Bullet his cookies. I grabbed a handful out of the box we kept under the sink and went back outside. To my surprise, Bullet was kneeling in the grass with the dog next to him. I smiled at the warm picture they made. Knowing that I carried his treat, Bullet got up quickly and galloped to the fence to meet me. The dog watched as I tossed the cookies over the fence. I noticed that she had not yet gotten the courage to venture outside the fence to get the meatloaf I had left for her. Again, I sat down on the back steps, trying to think of how to get the dog to overcome her fear and come for the meatloaf. For some reason, she seemed to feel safe within the confines of the pasture. Noticing that Bullet was eating, the dog began to move forward slowly, watching me all the while. He might share his alfalfa with you, but he'll never let you eat his oatmeal cookies, I said to myself. But to my surprise, Bullet watched with only mild interest as the dog leaped forward and grabbed a cookie. She swallowed the cookie in one famished gulp, then darted forward to snatch another one. There were no more cookies left, but the dog stood beneath Bullet and scurried for the crumbs that fell from the horse's mouth, licking the ground furiously. When Bullet walked backwards toward the shade of the oak tree, the dog trotted along beside him. All day long, whenever I looked out the window toward the pasture, the dog was always close to Bullet, either running along at his side or laying in the grass near him. The dog appeared to be devoted to the horse, who had willingly shared his food with her. It was 3 days before I coaxed the dog out of the pasture. She got down on her belly and crawled toward me, her large brown eyes begging me not to hurt her, whimpering partly in fear and partly with joy. She allowed me to gently pet her. I noticed that she was young and quite beautiful in spite of being malnourished. I found myself calling her Lucy, and knew that this stray was here to stay. Though Lucy eventually warmed to my husband Joe and me, she always preferred Bullet's company the most. She spent most of the day inside the pasture with him. They would run together with great exuberance and joy until they got tired and then dropped in the grass beside each other to rest. Bullet always shared his cookies with Lucy. Often Bullet would lower his head and nuzzle Lucy, and she would reach up and lick his face. It was obvious that they loved each other. At night, Lucy slept in the stall next to Bullet. When visitors commented on our new dog, we always laughed and said, "Lucy isn't our dog, she's Bullet's." Lucy brought joy into the life of an aging racehorse, and such amazement and wonder into ours. Elizabeth Atwater. And that will be where we stop, my dear friends. Tune in next video to hear about Daisy Love and to hear about devotion. This has been Ruby, signing off, my dear friends.